or as much of the foolishness as we could think of that exists at Fremont and in Nevada. So we just made a lot of decisions that weren't smart, and we designed those out such the production line is much simpler. So it's much simpler and better implemented. And then we also found that in most cases the suppliers were more efficient in China as well than in the US. So but we've also managed to get a lot more output from existing equipment in the US as well. So the Model 3 body line in Fremont, for example, was only ever meant to do 5,000 cars, Model 3s a week, and it's doing 7,000.
Wow, nice.
So,
wow, nice.
And it, with turning off a bunch of unnecessary things that were being done. So I mean, there was a lot of foolish things that we were doing. So and we changed some of the designs and made it easier to. It's like hundreds of little things to make it easier to build, and so being able to get 40% more output off the same line obviously makes a big difference, and while reducing the cost, the marginal cost of production, and I think improving the quality of the car. So it's all good stuff. It was the result of a ton of hard work by a lot of people. So yeah, it was kind of necessary in that we didn't really have a place to put a second Model 3 body line. So it's like we either make this one go faster or we will not be able to achieve production. But the Model 3 body line in Shanghai is much simpler than the one in, and I say that in a good way, because it has the same end result. So if you know, but it's a much easier to understand. There's just getting rid of unnecessary movement. There's a lot of unnecessary movement in the Fremont body line, but not in Shanghai.
So you guys said in the production letter that you just started battery production in Shanghai too, and I heard that you guys were getting cells from Cattle and LG Chem. Are the cells basically kind of like a commodity part that you can assemble into your battery packs there, or does it make a difference? How do you see that long term?
I believe these cells are not yet from LG. We do expect to use locally produced cells, but I don't. Just to be clear, I don't always know exactly what's going on everywhere at the 50,000 person company. So some of the things, like most of the things I say will be correct, but there may be occasionally something that's not. As to the best of my knowledge, we're not yet using LG Chem cells. We're using Panasonic cells made in Nevada.
But LG Chem can make pretty much the same cells as Panasonic?
Yes, but pretty much is not the same as same. So there's still a few bugs to work out with the LG Chem cells before we can use them in our module and battery pack production system. The CATL cells, or the CATL situation will be more of an integrated module than it will be a cell, and that's so that it's not just. It's not super easy to replace these things, but yeah, we do expect to use CATL. We do expect to use LG. Currently, we're using Panasonic. When I say expect to use, I mean like literally a matter of months. So by the middle of this year, we probably be using both LG and CATL in volume.
Wow.
So we were talking about a lot of Tesla stuff, but we kind of wanted to ask you about your personal history, because you were saying how there's some misconceptions you would like to make straight. And Ashley Vance wrote a book about you. I just read May's lovely book, and it was really wonderful. I loved it and learned a little bit more history about your family and you. But what are some of the misconceptions that you would like to correct?
Most of this is just ended up being kind of water under the bridge that people didn't notice that much. I mean, there's this sort of some stories in there where it sounds like I fired people all of a sudden and arbitrarily, which was not the case. There, it just actually asked somebody who didn't know what was going on, and then that person was suddenly not there, and they didn't know why.
Yeah.
But I definitely do not fire talented people, unless there's no option. So
yeah.
And absolutely not without warning. Or
I keep hearing you say "we." Like it sounds like you're always thinking of everybody. I see you as a very selfless person in your endeavors.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, yeah. It's like from the age of 12, it sounds like you've been thinking about how to help humanity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be sort of like some, the sort of savior or something like that, but it's really just that if it just seems like seems like the obvious thing to do. I can't, I'm not sure why you do anything else. We want to maximize happiness of the population and propagate into the future as far as possible and understand the nature of reality. And from that, I think everything else follows.
I saw you on Twitter, talking about how, people are having this rumor that you've been wealthy your whole life, and that would be the only reason you became successful. And you've debunked that. And can you share more about your upbringing and what led you to going to North America when you?
Sure. I was in South Africa, and it seemed like wherever there was, a lot of the advanced technology in the world was being produced in America, and Silicon Valley especially. So I wanted to be where I could sort of have an impact on technology. So that's or be involved in the creation of new technology. So that's what prompted me to go to at first Canada, because I could get citizenship in Canada through my mom, and then ultimately to the US. But yeah, I just left South Africa when I was 17 and landed in Montreal. I had about $2,000 Canadian. So I started staying in a youth hostel for a few days, and then there was this, you could buy a ticket to go across the country for $100 and stop along the way. And so I bought that and just took a Greyhound across Canada and saw all these little towns. Well, we were getting. I didn't have much. I had a backpack and a suitcase of books. But the bus company Greyhound, they unloaded it in one of the cities, and then the bus left without my stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So I literally had nothing.
All your books.
But your clothes too?
Actually, weirdly, I think I might have had the books thing, but not my clothes.
That was priorities.
All you needed.
Yeah, because I was just sitting in the bus station reading, waiting for the bus to get ready. Yeah. And I think I had the books, but no clothing.
Oh
no! So, anyway, but I managed to get to Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and then it's your cousin's son, yeah, has a wheat farm there, and I worked on the wheat farm for about 6 weeks.
Wow!
So I turned 18 in Saskatchewan. It's in this town called Swift Current.
So that was summertime, right? It was June.
Yeah, June 28th.
So, because I've been there in the winter and it's minus 40.
Yeah.
You don't want to be traveling there.
Yeah.
Did you ice skate? Did you try ice skating?
No, it was quite warm.
Okay. I mean in the winter. Did you stay for the winter?
Were you there in the winter?
No, I was there for about 6 weeks.
Oh, you're lucky you survived. That's good.
Yeah, so I was
it's cold there.
Literally working on the wheat farm. We did a barn raising and I cleared out the wheat bins, the grain silos and that kind of thing. And I just worked the vegetable patch, basically just doing various things.
Was your mind just thinking of what you're going to do after that?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what I do next. Don't know what to do. So then I ended up getting back on the bus and went to Vancouver. And I had a half uncle there who was kind of in the lumber industry. he like made lumber equipment.
Sounds like the Northwest.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. So I ended up chainsawing logs and working on this lumber mill, and cleaning out the where they boil the pulp in these like crazy sort of boiler rooms.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that might be the hardest job I've had, actually, because you had to like crawl through this little tunnel in a hazmat suit, and then with a shovel and then shovel this sort of steaming sand and mulch out of the boilers to clean them out.
Wow.
And you had to like, there was only one entrance or exit, which was like a little tunnel. If you're claustrophobic, it would be real bad. And then you shovel the sand and the mulch through the tunnel, and it would actually block the tunnel, and then somebody else would reach in and shovel it out from the other side. So just big enough, long enough that if you have a shovel with a long handle, so one person on the inside can shovel it far enough that someone on the outside can shovel it out.
Wow.
And then you have to rotate every 15 minutes to avoid getting hypothermia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And there's no
intense.
safeties, there's just a man looking out for you.
It was just two people kind of paired up. So if like one person collapses and you got to call somebody, but it'd be really hard to drag somebody out. I have to say that it does not seem safe, because if the tunnel gets blocked, trying to unblock that tunnel would be very difficult in a short period of time. So, but it was the highest paying job at the employment office. So I was like, okay, the other jobs were like, I don't know, $8 an hour, and this one was $18 an hour.
You had to buy your clothes, and they're all gone.
Well, they did give you a hazmat suit. So,
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
How long did you do that job for?
like 4 days.
Oh, okay.
No, but then it was done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You said it was like a short-term thing, cleaning grain bins, cleaning the
boilers.
the boiler rooms.
So what was next? We were in boiler rooms and then...
Yeah, so it's basically, I mean, literally it was like a lumberjack who's chainsawing logs, and just doing lumber stuff, basically, for a few months there. And then applied for college, and went to Queen's University in Kingston, and was there for a couple of years, and then somebody suggested I should apply to UPenn, and I didn't think I'd be able to go, because I was paying for my own way through university, which is actually not that hard in Canada, because the tuition
System.
the tuition's highly subsidized in Canada. So with basically some, if you sort of work during the summer and semester and take out some loans and get some scholarships, you can pretty much go to any college in Canada, I think. But I met someone who was at UPenn, and they said you should at least apply, and I applied, and they actually gave me like quite a big scholarship. So that allowed me to go there, and so then I did the physics and economics there, and then that's what led to the road trip to Stanford with Robin Wren, and then I was doing that summer that I was like, okay, if I can either spend several years kind of doing a PhD, and not that I care about the PhD actually, but I just needed a lab. But I could either spend a bunch of years working in a lab, and maybe the technology would pan out, or maybe it wouldn't. But the internet was definitely about to go supernova in '95. So I was like, okay, look, I can always come back to working on electric cars, basically, and which obviously I did. But the internet is not going to wait. So then I put Stanford on deferment, and started Zip2, which was really just, we started off with maps and directions, yellow pages, white pages, that kind of thing. And it was, best of my knowledge, the first maps and directions on the internet. So there's still some like patents I have. I don't have many more, but I think they've obviously lapsed at this point. But for maps and directions and Yelp pages and advertising and stuff. And I wrote the whole initial code base. I wrote personally because there wasn't any Rails. It was just me. So, and I only had a few $1,000s. And then my brother joined, and he brought like $5,000, which was a lot. Yeah, at least for the first few months, there was literally only one computer. So the website, when the website wasn't working, it was because I was compiling code. and even to get an internet connection was pretty hard. But there was an internet service provider on the floor below us. And we more or less squatted in this office. The landlord was like out of the country or something, and nobody was using it. So
you lived in there?
Yeah.
I think I read that in May's book you showered at the YMCA then, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's smart though. I mean, you were thrifty. You did what you had to do.
We just like had no money, so what are we gonna do? You know?
What did people think about Zip2 generally? Was it like seen as a crazy idea, or like did people even understand the internet back then?
Most people did not understand the internet. Most people didn't know. Even on Sand Hill Road, like we tried pitching people to invest in an internet company. Most of the VCs we pitched to had never used the internet.
Do you remember some of the VC firms you went to on Sand Hill?
I remember most of the time we wouldn't take a meeting, and if they did take the meeting, they were pretty bored and not said like who's made money in the internet? No, we're like no one. Okay, but the sea change occurred when Netscape went public.
Yeah.
So, but the first thing I tried to do was not start a company. I tried to get a job at Netscape, but they didn't reply to me.
Oh no!
Oh man!
So I tried hanging out in the lobby at Netscape. I don't know who to talk to. I was really too shy to talk to anyone. I don't know. So it's like, okay, I can't get a job at the only internet company that that does internet software. So then I'll try writing software. So that's kind of what happened there. Yeah, and then like I said, my brother came down and joined. This is like late '95, and then in January '95, I think it was there was a lot more interest in the internet stuff following the Netscape IPO, and the software was more impressive, I guess. So then more David Dow invested. So they're VC firm on Sand Hill Road, and they invested, I think it was like $3 million for effectively 60% of the company.
Wow.
Which we thought was crazy. They're like, well, they're going to give us the money for nothing? They must be mad. Yeah, so this seemed like crazy that they would give so much money for a company that consisted at the time of about 5 people. Like literally, I think 5 people at the time. So, but anyway, it worked out well for them in the end. So we hired a lot more people. We built out the service, and then we also ended up writing a bunch of software to bring the newspapers online. So Knight Ridder, New York Times Company, Hearst, all became investors and customers. And at one point, Zip2 was responsible for a significant section of the New York Times Company website. Yeah, so I got to know the media industry pretty well, and but over what really happened with Zip2 is it effectively got too much. There was too much control by the existing media companies, so they had too many board seats and too much voting control, and that they kept trying to push the company down directions that made no sense. So Zip2 actually had really good software. I'd say software that's comparable, in some ways more advanced than, say, a Yahoo or Excite at the time, but it was just not being used properly, and it was all being forced through media companies who would then not use it. So it's like, it's okay, we've got the best technology, but it's not being deployed properly. So but fortunately, Compaq came along, and they Compaq had acquired Digital Equipment, and Digital Equipment had owned AltaVista, which at the time was probably the best search engine. So they thought that their idea was they will combine AltaVista with a bunch of other internet companies and try to create a competitor to Yahoo or Excite. That was Excite used to be a big thing, amazingly, and Yahoo used to be a big thing.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Now it's like owned by Verizon or something.
Yeah.
Then there was AOL.
AOL back then.
Yahoo's a crazy story. They, they failed to acquire Google twice. Microsoft offered them like $40 billion or something, and they turned it down.
And then Alibaba saved them out of nowhere.
The Alibaba stake was worth more than the whole company at one point.
By a huge amount.
Right.
It was basically a proxy for Alibaba shares trading.
Yeah, no, exactly. But at one point, at that time, like if you go back to say 98, 99, Yahoo seemed like an unstoppable juggernaut.
Yeah.
Like literally, this company will, is a behemoth. Nobody could possibly defeat them. But anyway, and where's Compaq today? Yeah. So. But that was their idea, which is at least if executed well, could have made sense.
Kimball!
Yeah, what are you guys doing?
We're recording a podcast.
Yeah, how do you want me to join?
Pull up a chair. So what do you remember about Zip2?
Yeah, what do you remember?
Yeah, but then the internet came along, became this huge thing. I mean, it was always there, but it became a big deal. And then Elon was working in Silicon Valley, and as I remember it, I overheard a meeting where some of the Yellow Pages companies were thinking of doing sort of online Yellow Pages. And
no, why would I have been in a meeting?
I don't know. This is a long time ago. Anyway, you called me up and you said you think you can do a better job. So we think we can do a better job.
Maybe you made that up to try and get Kimball interested.
How would I be in a meeting with Yellow Pages company?
I have no idea. That's what I remember.
No.
But what's your version of that?
Sleepless nights.
I didn't even know any Yellow Pages.
I agree with you. I agree with you
Okay.
now. So it was like I think April of 1995. We started working on it, and the I guess the idea was fairly simple: to take mapping and apply it to the internet. And there were a few other companies trying to do it, but no one with the very cool technology of sort of what was called vector-based mapping, which is what we all use today, where the map is actually alive, not just a picture.
That was very ahead of its time.
I think we were the first. I know there were other people putting maps on the internet, but I think we were the first to put vector-based mapping, which is what the kind of technology you use today on the internet, and door-to-door directions. So it was cool. I remember my brother and I pressing go on his server at our office, and it took about 60 seconds for the first door-to-door directions to come up on the screen. And even 60 seconds was amazing.
Yeah.
You were like, this is incredible. Door-to-door directions to anywhere. This is just amazing. And
Definitely seemed amazing at the time.
definitely seemed amazing at the time.
Yeah, it's like
Now it's like
Now it's like
absolutely
wherever.
normal, but this was like an impossible thing.
So cool.
It was so cool. And using Java, Elon had coded a interactive map, which again, all super normal stuff today, but the ability to just draw a square and zoom in or zoom out, that was just unheard of technology.
draw a square.
Yeah, you remember that? It was like a little red square on the Java
On a
map.
browser, it was weird. That was unusual.
Yeah.
Yes. You just
Well, you cheated if you're using Java applets.
Yeah, but this is when Java sucked and it was barely.
Yeah, this was like probably the most.
was 95.
I think we even got some sort of recognition because it was the most advanced Java application on Java at the time because it was so ridiculously hard. It was a really crappy technology at the time,
Well,
but this was done on it.
The thing is that if you downloaded the Java app, we could transmit the vector data, not just a bitmap. And this is when everyone was on a modem.
Right.
So if somebody's on like 28 kilobits modem, or trying to download a map image would take forever. Whereas if you had, but downloading the vector data so that locally rendered using the Java applet was relatively speaking super fast. That's what made it cool.
Smart.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, even like vector maps even Google Maps was using like raster maps a few years ago. Like, it seems like very ahead of its time.
Well, we were the
But I guess-
first. I believe the two of us were the first humans to see maps in door-to-door directions on the internet, which I think is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How Garmin came out? When did Garmin first launch?
Well, they weren't internet-based, right? So you could. Actually, I don't think Garmin was even a player at this point. It was Navtech was the only place that we were. That's where we got the data from.
Yeah.
And they were building it for Hertz Neverlost, which came out a few years later. You know those things that no one uses in the GPS systems. Really, really bad technology, but the actual mapping data was amazing. And so we took that and applied it to the internet. We were 22 and 23 at the time. It had cost them $300 million to build this data, and they gave it to us for free with a simple contract saying, if you ever make any money on this, you got to come
Share
to
it
us.
with them. Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's how we got it.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so it's amazing what happens if you ask nicely. And there's also part of it was these guys had been working so hard on the tech, and no one had ever seen what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because it was not on the internet and it was not being used for Hertz, and so it was just they were excited that someone would use the data and people could see what they'd been working on.
So how did you guys get the engineering chops to pull this off? Because it sounds like you were so young, you didn't really have any help, and then you built this like cutting edge piece of technology. Did you teach yourselves, or
from I don't know what age, but you published your first
the like Blast Star game, right?
Yeah, when he was 12.
Did you write any other cool stuff back then?
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of games.
Yeah.
And then like occasionally like software for people that ask for software.
You also work for a video game company.
Yeah, finally it was called
Rocket Science.
Yeah.
That's funny.
By the way, we took a SpaceX tour yesterday. It was insane.
Thank you for that. That was amazing. Yeah, it was so good.
It's like Batman's lair in there.
That's right.
It's really cool.
Really is amazing.
But it gives you perspective on what Tesla's doing because the technology is so advanced, and there's interchange of information there. Like I know they used the Inconel fuse, right? Was from SpaceX when they couldn't get the power output, right? It kept burning up the fuse in the performance models. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see the SpaceX tech being applied to Tesla. I think there's one joint employee between SpaceX and Tesla, and it's the materials. Is it the materials engineer?
What about Elon?
Of course, Elon. In addition to Elon, because there's just not that many humans on the planet that know how to do this stuff.
No. Well, it sounded like back in the old days, was it just Elon doing the coding, or?
I mean, I did a little for like HTML front end coding, but it wasn't mine.
Not recently, but no, we had no money, so you couldn't employ him. So I just wrote all the software.
And you worked through the night, right? You just never. According to his book, you just never slept. I don't know.
I mean, we lived in a little office. I think this address was 470 Sherman Way in Palo Alto. It was probably.
It's about the size of this room here.
Yeah, it was probably like 15 feet wide by 30 feet long with a little closet in the back. And we would we couldn't afford a place to sleep or like a house, a home or apartment. So we would sleep in it, and it had a couch that was a futon, and we would pull out the futon, take turns sleeping on the futon or the floor. Although he coded a lot at night, so I usually got the futon at night. And he had to code it at night because the server, when the internet was live, needed to be functional, and we just had data for the Bay Area at the time, so we were just kind of making sure that the people in the Bay Area could use it. And then I had a little mini fridge with a cooking stove on it, and we'd cook simple things, like pasta sauce and pasta and things like that. That would be as cheap as dirt. People think it's expensive to eat real food. It's actually really cheap.
Yeah.
You cook vegetables, pasta, and
beans and stuff.
Beans, super cheap.
So we had that Jack in the Box
absolutely
a lot.
the cheapest. And then we would go eat at Jack in the Box, which I still kind of shiver a little. And I haven't eaten there for probably 20 years or longer, maybe 22 years, and I can still probably recite the entire menu.
Yeah, we cycled through the menu at Jack in the Box because it was like it's a few blocks away from.
And it was open 24 hours.
Open 24 hours. Trying to get dinner at Palo Alto after 10 is very difficult.
Zero.
Yeah.
So did they know you very well at Jack in the Box?
Well, they didn't really.
No.
They did?
No. And I remember one time I got a milkshake, and I was so tired. It was like 4 in the morning, and just needed to get some sugar for the rest of the night. And there was something in it.
Oh, no.
And I remember just flicking it out and just pretending it didn't exist and just kept drinking my milkshake.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was like that. We were that kind of like not in the zone to go back into Jack in the Box and argue about a milkshake, but I don't want to not drink the milkshake.
And part of the reason that food was like so cheap is that they had some people I think died of food poisoning.
Yes, it was right around that time when they got into a food poisoning scare.
And so it was just very cheap to eat there. And I figured they probably have taken some action because after the food poisoning.
Yeah,
so
they did.
hopefully,
that's
maybe it's just like.
But I still
eat a little bit of it. Does it taste funny? I need to stop eating if it tastes funny.
You run out of things to eat because after like the 17th chicken fajita pita, you're like,
Chicken fajita pita.
can't do it.
The teriyaki bowl. Yeah, remember that teriyaki bowl?
Was that one good?
It's actually it varied, but it was edible. It was not bad.
Which one was?
The teriyaki bowl.
Teriyaki bowl wasn't bad. There was the sort of sourdough grilled cheese.